The first answer is all our segments are actually going very strong, which is very important for Allianz. We are well diversified across all segments. And people have not, to answer your question, expected to do our very strong, probably leading life franchise in the world doing so well. But also asset management in the fourth quarter has caught up. Given the pressure still on bonds market, it was a remarkable result. And just to talk about flows, it continues into this year. The first few weeks we had more flows into the fund management business than we had in all of last year. So the business is doing extremely well.
I'll ask you about the outlook then, because this year 14.7 billion in operating profit. For next year you're guiding in the range of 14.8 billion euros plus or minus 1 billion euros. That looks a little bit weak. What are you seeing on the horizon that gives you a little bit of lack of visibility and suggestion earnings may actually even be lower?
The issue, what we always do, we are very conservative. We are operating in a world, that is on the brink of war in many regions of the world. And it has been a good tradition at Allianz, when you look at the last number of years that have been in charge, that we take last year's results as the core of what we expect to continue, plus one. But when you look at the numbers the last few years, we have done 6% more. So we'd like to be conservative to not just continuously have to update the market on how are we doing relative to target. That's the real reason. We are very confident about this year as well. Why is that? One, I mentioned the flows back into the life insurance business is extremely stable. You see that the new accounting results, our CSM and cash flow distribution extremely strong. And we've had massive increases in effective rates on our book that are now coming through, even in the most challenged market, double-digit effective price increases. So this year is going to look at least as good as last year.
Oliver, really nice to see you, by the way. Thanks for joining both of us. How dependent are these extraordinary profits that you and all the other, we're talking to the CEOs of AXA, of Zurich in the last 48 hours, etc. How long can these really extended profits last? It feels like we're at the top of a cycle, a sweet spot in terms of rates, in terms of premiums, in terms of ROE. I just wonder, do you see a time, if you're saying it's going to be at least as good this coming year, when actually that's going to abate?
It's a very good question. Thank you very much. We are very different from our competitors because the companies that you have just mentioned are basically purely left in property casualty insurance and have a significant exposure to commercial lines. We have seen once in a decade high profitability, by the way, also at Allianz now, with record earnings and record profitability. But remember, we have an extremely strong retail business that is stronger than almost anybody else. And on top, we have one of the leading life franchises in the world where for our new business, for example, we're not consuming any more capital. So we're adding cash flow every year, and the asset management is back, particularly on the bond side, which has been under pressure because of rising and high rates for the last few years. So we have a totally different structure and a lot more resilience than many, many other companies.
Interesting that I look in P&C and I'm seeing a little bit of tightening on the combined ratio, only a little bit, and obviously your Netcat losses and claims went up a tad again as well. Oliver, is that a trend or is it an aberration?
So that's again, excellent question. We had another record year of Netcat hits. And by the world is changing. We're not just having very large events, but what you're seeing now is sort of what we call microcyclones. We had a number of them in Europe last year. And that's why we are increasing the Netcat load in our premium calculations to 3%, which is basically doubling relative to 10 years ago. And Netcat activity is continuing increasing. The key question is, can we reprice for it? And the answer is absolutely yes. And we are redoing also our reinsurance programs. Remember, Allianz is one of the few insurance companies in the world that can place an aggregate cover to the reinsurance market. So while we have to retain more Netcat activity, we also have very good capital bases. The key thing is, however, to stay on our toes, to manage inflation, and you're going to see significantly better pricing and results in retail this year. Can I forecast all Netcat? No, I can't.